The ship Serenity moved slowly toward Nexus Prime. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the massive trading station grow larger in the front window. The station looked like a giant metal flower with dozens of arms reaching out in all directions. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at those arms every day. "Sir, we are getting clearance for Docking Bay 7, said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her seat at the communication station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and quick eyes that missed nothing. Jake nodded. "Take us in, pilot." The pilot, Lieutenant Chris Harper, was a calm man with steady hands. He guided their ship toward the docking bay without any trouble. Jake had flown with Chris for 3 years now, and the man had never made a bad landing dot. As their ship moved closer to the station, Jake noticed something strange. Other ships were moving away from their path, not just moving aside to let them pass, but actually changing course to stay far away from them. A large cargo ship from the Vespari system suddenly turned and headed to a different docking bay entirely. "Amy, are you seeing this traffic pattern?" Jake asked. Amy looked at her screen and frowned. "Yes, sir. It looks like everyone is avoiding us. Station Control is directing all other ships to stay at least 5 kilometers away from our approach path." Jake found this odd, but not surprising. This kind of thing happened everywhere they went. Aliens treated humans differently than they treated each other. Much differently. The ship docked with a soft bump. Jake could hear the clamps locking there. Ship to the station. Air pumps started working to make sure the air between their ship and the station was safe to breathe. "All right, people. Standard diplomatic mission. We are here to talk with the Zelkari Trade Consortium about mining rights in the Tau Ceti system. Amy, you are with me. Chris, stay with the ship and keep engines ready." "Ready for what, sir?" Chris asked. Jake paused. It was a good question. "Just ready," he said finally. Jake and Amy walked through the airlock and into Nexus Prime. The station was huge inside, with tall ceilings and wide walkways. Thousands of beings moved around them. There were tall, blue-skinned Zelkari with their long arms and big eyes. Short, furry Mokari rolled past on wheels instead of legs. The green, lizard-like Krithik stood in small groups, their yellow eyes always watching. But as soon as Jake and Amy stepped into the main corridor, everything changed. A young Zelkari child was running toward them, chasing a small floating toy. When the child's mother saw Jake and Amy, she made a sharp noise and grabbed her child. She pulled the child behind a cargo container and held him there. The child looked confused and a little scared. A group of Krithak warriors who had been standing near the entrance immediately moved to the other side of the corridor. These were beings who feared nothing, who fought for sport and honor. But they gave Jake and Amy a space of at least 10 meters as they walked past. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "is it just me, or does everyone look terrified?" Jake looked around. Amy was right. Every alien they passed had the same look. It was not exactly fear, but something close to it. Respect mixed with worry. Like they were looking at something dangerous that might explode at any moment. A Vespari merchant dropped his entire tray of goods when he saw them coming. The small, gray-skinned alien quickly picked up his items and backed away, bowing the whole time. He kept saying something in his own language that sounded like an apology. "This is normal," Jake told Amy. "You will get used to it." But Amy did not look like she wanted to get used to it. "Sir, why do they act like this?" "I have read the history files, but they do not explain this level of ... reaction." Jake had been born in 2350, 12 years after the wars ended. He had grown up in a galaxy where every alien species treated humans like they were made of poison and lightning. His parents had told him stories but even they did not like to talk about what had happened during the Terran pacification wars. They walked toward the center of the station, where the meeting rooms were located. Along the way, Jake noticed more strange things. Shop owners came out of their stores and offered free items. A Mokari restaurant owner rolled up to them and insisted they take free food, even though they had not asked for any. Station security followed them, but not in a threatening way. The guards stayed exactly 50 meters behind them and moved when they moved. Jake could see them talking into their communication devices, probably reporting their location to someone. When they reached the central plaza, Jake saw something that made him stop walking. There was a monument in the center of the plaza made of black stone. Words were carved into it in dozens of different languages. At the top, in letters that seemed to glow, were words in human English. The words said, "No sentient being shall bring intentional harm to any human, under penalty of species extinction." Amy read the words out loud. "Sir, what does that mean? Penalty of species extinction?" Jake looked at the monument. He had seen others like it on every station and planet he had ever visited. They were always in the most important places. Always visible. Always kept clean and well maintained. "It means," Jake said slowly, "that if anyone hurts a human, their entire species could be destroyed." Amy stared at him. "But that sounds like ... Like what?" "Like we are the most dangerous things in the galaxy." Jake looked around at all the aliens giving them space, at the security guards watching their every move, at the children being pulled away from them. He thought about Earth, his peaceful home world where people grew flowers and wrote poetry, and worried about small things, like what to have for dinner. "Maybe we are," he said as they walked toward the meeting room. Jake wondered not for the first time what had really happened 50 years ago. What had humans done during those wars that made the entire galaxy agree to this rule? What had they done that was so terrible that every species in known space would rather give humans anything they wanted than risk breaking this one law? He was about to find out. The meeting room was large and round, with a table in the center made of smooth white stone. Jake and Amy sat on one side. Across from them sat 3 Zelkari representatives. The Zelkari were tall and thin, with blue skin that changed shades when they were upset or excited. Their large black eyes never seemed to blink. The leader of the Zelkari group was Trade Prince Vixnar. He was younger than the other two, maybe the equivalent of 30 human years. His skin was a darker blue than the others, and he wore gold bands around his long arms. Jake could tell right away that this one was different. While the older Zelkari showed the usual nervous respect around humans, Vexnar looked angry. "We are here to discuss the mining agreement for the Tau Ceti system," Jake said in a calm voice. "Our companies signed a contract 6 months ago. We are ready to begin operations." The oldest Zelkari, whose name was Elder Kexdal, spoke first. His voice was soft and careful. "Commander Morrison, we must discuss changes to this agreement. Our people have discovered that the mining locations are near our sacred spawning grounds." Amy pulled out her data tablet. "The survey reports show the mining sites are at least 50 kilometers from any biological activity areas. Our environmental scans found no signs of Zelkari spawning grounds." "The scans were wrong," said Vexinar. His voice was sharp and loud. "Our people have used those waters for thousands of years. Your human machines cannot detect the subtle signs of our breeding cycles." Jake looked at the young prince carefully. "Prince Vexnar, the contract was very clear about protected areas. Your people approved all the survey data before signing." "We were rushed into signing," Vexinar said. His blue skin was getting darker, which Jake knew meant he was getting more upset. "Your people pressured us with threats about trade embargoes." "That is not accurate," Amy said, checking her files. The negotiations took 8 months. Your people requested several changes, and we agreed to all of them. Elder Kexdal raised one of his long hands. Please, let us discuss this calmly. Perhaps we can find a solution that works for everyone. But Vexnar stood up suddenly. No, I am tired of this. Every species in the galaxy bows down to humans like they are gods. We give you the best trading routes. We sell you resources at low prices. We stay out of your way and say yes, sir, and thank you, sir, to everything you want. The other two Zelkari looked terrified. Elder Kexdal started making soft clicking sounds, which Jake knew was how Zelkari showed extreme worry. Prince Vexnar, Elder Kexdal said quickly, please remember where we are. I remember exactly where we are, Vexnar said. We are in a meeting where humans are trying to take our sacred waters because they think they can do whatever they want. Jake kept his voice calm. We are not trying to take anything that belongs to you. If you have new information about spawning grounds, we can review the mining sites. New information? Vexnar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. The information is thousands of years old. Those waters have been sacred to my people since before your species learned to make fire. Amy looked up from her tablet. Prince Vexnar, we have satellite images of the area going back 50 years. There has been no Zelkari activity in those waters during that entire time. Because we have been too afraid to use them, Vexnar shouted. Because every time we try to go anywhere or do anything, we have to worry about what the humans will think. At this point, Chris Harper stepped forward from where he had been standing near the door. Prince Vexnar, you need to calm down. We are all trying to work together here. Vexnar turned to look at Chris. And you are what? Another human who thinks he can tell everyone else what to do. I am just suggesting that we keep this discussion professional, Chris said. Professional? Vexnar's skin was now so dark it was almost purple. You want to know what I think is professional? This, before anyone could react, Vexnar stepped forward and slapped Chris across the face with the back of his hand. The sound was sharp and loud in the quiet room. The room went completely silent. Chris touched his lip, which was now bleeding slightly. He looked more surprised than hurt. Did you just? Amy stared with her mouth open. Elder Kexdal made sound like air being let out of a balloon. The third Zelkari, who had not spoken during the meeting, fell out of his chair. Jake looked at Vexnar for a long moment. His face showed no emotion at all. Then he slowly reached for the communication device on his belt. Commander, Elder Kexdal said in a shaking voice, please. The prince is young. He does not understand. Jake activated his communicator. The device made a soft beeping sound as it connected to the human communication network. This is Code Absolute, Jake said into the device. His voice was quiet and calm, like he was ordering coffee. Immediately, alarms started going off throughout the station. Not loud alarms, but soft warning chimes that came from every wall, every computer, every communication device. The lights in the room changed from white to yellow. Through the meeting room's window, Jake could see aliens running in the corridors outside. Shop owners were closing their stores. Families were gathering their children and heading toward the emergency shelters. Amy looked around in confusion. Sir, what is Code Absolute? Jake did not answer her. He was still looking at Vexnar, who was beginning to understand that something very bad had just happened. Elder Kexdal was now shaking, so hard he could barely stand. Commander Morrison, please. We can fix this. The prince will apologize. Prince Vexnar struck a human officer, Jake said. The law is very clear about what happens next. Vexnar looked around the room. The alarms were getting louder. Now, through the window, He could see security ships launching from the station's docking bays. Every alien ship that had been docked at the station was quickly leaving. "I do not understand," Vexenar said. "It was just a small act of anger. Your officer is not seriously hurt." Jake finally showed emotion. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Prince Vexenar, you are about to learn why no one harms humans. And once you learn, you will spend the rest of your life making sure no one else ever forgets." The communication device on Jake's belt started receiving incoming messages. Lots of them. 6 hours later, the first human ships arrived. They did not come slowly like normal ships. They appeared suddenly in the space around Nexus Prime, like they had been hiding in the dark between the stars. One moment the space was empty, and the next moment it was full of human warships. Prince Vexenar stood in the detention cell aboard Nexus Prime, looking out through the small window. He could see the ships gathering outside. They were different from any ships he had ever seen before. They were black and smooth, with no lights or markings. They moved without making any sound that the station's sensors could detect. "How many are there?" he asked the guard, a nervous Mokari, who kept rolling back and forth by the door. "T-200 so far," the guard said. "But more keep coming." Jake Morrison stood in the station's command center, watching the same ships arrive. Station Commander Yixtal, a old Vespari with gray skin and tired eyes, stood beside him. "Commander Morrison," Yixtal said, "we have never seen ships like these before. Our computers cannot identify them." "Those are Ghost Fleet ships," Jake said calmly. "Most people thought they were just stories. Ghost Fleet? Ships that stay hidden until they are needed. They have been watching and waiting for 50 years. The largest ship that arrived was different from the others. It was huge, bigger than the trading station itself. The words UES Retribution were painted on its side in letters tall enough to be seen from space. A message came through the station's communication system. The voice was calm and clear, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Ryan Cole of the Earth Defense Fleet. Nexus Prime is now under human protection. All non-human ships will leave this system immediately. Any ship that does not leave within 1 hour will be considered hostile." Commander Yixtal looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Commander, surely this is too much response for one small incident?" Jake looked at him with cold eyes. "There are no small incidents when it comes to harming humans. You will understand soon." Meanwhile, on Zarian Prime, the center of galactic government, emergency alarms were ringing throughout the massive city. The Galactic Council building, an enormous dome that could be seen from orbit, was lighting up with urgent signals. Inside the council chamber, representatives from hundreds of species were gathering for an emergency session. The chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. Each species had their own section, with special air and gravity to keep them comfortable. At the human section, Ambassador Lisa Chun sat alone. She was a small woman with dark hair and hard eyes. She had not said a word since arriving, just sat and watched as alien representatives hurried into their seats. In the Krithek section, War Speaker Thurak stood up. He was old for a Krithek, with scars covering his green skin and one yellow eye that was clouded with age. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible memories. "Young ones," he said, looking around at the newer species representatives, "you are afraid, but you do not understand why you should be afraid. You have lived your entire lives under the peace treaty. You have never seen humans when they are truly angry." A young Zelkari representative stood up. "War Speaker Thurok, surely you exaggerate. Humans are just one species among many. How dangerous can they really be?" Several of the older representatives made sounds of fear and worry. An ancient Vespari elder, so old her skin had turned almost white, spoke in a shaking voice. "Child, I was there during the war. I saw what they did to the combined fleet at the Battle of Kepler Station. 12 species, working together with over 3,000 ships. The humans had maybe 300 ships. What happened?" asked a young Mokari representative. "The humans won," the Vespari elder said simply. "Not just one. They made it look easy." Back on Nexus Prime, Captain Ryan, Cole transported over to the station with a small team of human soldiers. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes like winter storms. When he walked through the station corridors, every alien moved out of his way immediately. He went straight to the detention center where Prince Vexinar was being held. The prince looked up when the captain entered the cell. "Are you here to kill?" "Emmy?" Vexinar asked. "Not today," Captain Cole said. "Today, you are going to learn something." "Learn what?" "Why the rule exists." Captain Cole sat down across from the prince. "Tell me, Prince Vexinar, what do you know about the Terran pacification?" "Wars? I know that humans fought against the Galactic Council 50 years ago. I know they won somehow. That is all anyone ever talks about." "That is not all that happened," Captain Cole said. "The war started because species like yours thought humans were weak. They thought we could be pushed around, controlled, made to do what they wanted. So you fought back. That is normal. Every species fights when attacked." Captain Cole smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "Prince, humans do not fight like other species. When you attack us, we do not just fight back. We learn. We adapt. We become something that your species cannot understand or defeat." On Zarian Prime, the council session was getting more intense. Ambassador Chun finally stood up to speak. The entire chamber went quiet. Prince Vexinar of the Zelkari Trade Consortium struck Lieutenant Chris Harper of the human diplomatic vessel Serenity, she said. Her voice carried no emotion. "This is a violation of the Covenant of Zarian. Article 1. We demand immediate justice." An old Krithik general, veteran of the original war, spoke up. "Ambassador Chun, what justice do you seek?" "Complete dissolution of the Zelkari Trade Consortium. Exile of Prince Vexinar from all civilized space. Payment of war damages in the Yang. Amount of 50 billion galactic credits." The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. The young Zelkari representative fell out of his chair. War Speaker Thurak stood up again. "Silence," he roared. The chamber went quiet. "Young species, you still do not understand. The ambassador's demands are not punishment. They are mercy." "How? Is that mercy?" asked the young Mokari. "Because," Thurak said, "if this had happened 50 years ago, there would be no Zelkari species left to punish." Back on the Retribution, Captain Cole was walking Prince Vexinar toward the ship's memorial. "Room. Where are you taking me?" Vexinar asked. "To see the monuments," Captain Cole said. "Every human ship has them. They help us remember why we choose to be peaceful." They stopped in front of a large door made of black metal. Words were carved into it in human writing. "Remember the choice." "What choice?" Vexinar asked. Captain Cole looked at him with cold eyes. "The choice to let your species continue existing." The memorial room on the Retribution was dark, except for floating holographic displays that showed images and videos from 51 years ago. Captain Cole stood beside Prince Vexinar as the first display came to life. "This is how it started," Captain Cole said. "The hologram showed a human colony world called New Boston. It was a pretty place with green fields and small towns. Then the image changed to show the same world after attack. Buildings were burned. Bodies lay in the streets. Ships with Vespari markings flew away in the distance. The Vespari pirate clans thought humans would be easy targets, Captain Cole explained. We were new to space travel. We only had a few colonies. Our ships were slow, and our weapons were simple. The next hologram showed a human military officer in an old-style uniform. The text below said, Colonel Dan Miller, Earth Defense Force. Colonel Miller was in charge of protecting our colonies, Captain Cole said. When the pirates attacked New Boston, they killed 3,000 humans. They took another 500 as slaves. Prince Vexinar watched as the hologram showed Colonel Miller standing in front of a group of human soldiers. The colonel looked angry, but his voice was calm when he spoke. The pirates think we are weak, the hologram of Colonel Miller said. They think we will give up after one attack. They are wrong. The scene changed to show human ships chasing Vespari pirate vessels through an asteroid field. But these human ships moved differently than before. They were faster, more precise. They worked together like parts of a single machine. How did they improve so quickly? Vexinar asked. Humans learn from every attack, Captain Cole said. The pirates used stealth and speed, so we built better sensors and faster engines. Within 6 months, no Vespari ship could hide from us. The next hologram showed a battle above a red planet. Krithik warships, huge and covered with weapons, were fighting human vessels that looked tiny in comparison. The Krithik thought they could scare us with shows of strength, Captain Cole said. They sent their biggest ships to attack our mining stations. They wanted us to surrender rather than fight their superior firepower. Prince Vexinar watched as the small human ships scattered like insects, then regrouped to attack the Krithik vessels from unexpected angles. The human ships did not try to fight the Krithik ships directly. Instead, they targeted specific systems, working together to disable the larger ships piece by piece. The Krithik had never fought an enemy that refused to face them in direct combat, Captain Cole said. They did not know how to fight an enemy that used their own strength against them. A new hologram appeared, showing a woman in a white coat standing in front of a computer screen covered with data. The text said, Dr. Helen Baker, Human Military Analysis. Dr. Baker studied every species that attacked us, Captain Cole said. She learned how they thought, how they fought, what they feared most. The hologram of Dr. Baker was pointing at a chart showing different alien species. Every species has patterns, the hologram said. The Vespari value individual profit over group success. The Krithik value honor over practical victory. The Mokari fear being cut off from their home networks. If we understand these patterns, we can predict their actions. Humans weaponized psychology, Captain Cole said to Vexinar. We did not just learn to fight each species. We learned to think like them, and then we used that knowledge to break their will to fight. The next series of holograms showed battles from all across the galaxy. Human forces were always outnumbered, but they won every single fight. Not just one, but won so completely that the losing side seemed confused and broken. By the 4th year of the war, 12 species had formed a coalition against Earth, Captain Cole said. They called it the Pacification Fleet. 3,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history. The hologram changed to show Earth surrounded by an enormous fleet of alien ships. The ships came from every direction, blocking out the stars. It looked impossible for anything to escape. Admiral Ben Carter was in command of Earth's defense, Captain Cole said. A new hologram showed a middle-aged human man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had 400 ships to defend against 3,000. Prince Vexinar stared at the display. How could anyone win against such odds? Watch, Captain Cole said. The hologram showed the battle beginning. The alien coalition attacked in waves, expecting the human ships to be destroyed quickly. But something strange happened. As each wave attacked, The human defenders seemed to know exactly what the aliens would do before they did it. Krithik ships charged forward in their traditional attack formations, only to find that the humans had already moved to positions where the Krithik could not use their weapons effectively. Vespari ships tried to use hit-and-run tactics, but human ships were waiting in every escape route. Mokari communication ships found their signals jammed by broadcasts that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Dr. Baker had studied every species in the Coalition for 4 years, Captain Cole explained. She knew how each commander would think, how each species would react under pressure. The humans did not just fight the Coalition ships. They fought the Coalition's ability to work together. The hologram showed alien commanders growing frustrated as their carefully planned attacks fell apart. Ships began to retreat, then entire fleets. By the end of the battle, the human defenders had not destroyed the Coalition fleet. They had caused it to destroy itself through confusion and fear. The final message from Admiral Carter was broadcast. To every world in the Coalition, Captain Cole said. A new hologram appeared, showing Admiral Carter speaking calmly to a camera. Behind him, the wreckage of the Coalition fleet drifted in space. Leaders of the Galactic Coalition, the hologram of Admiral Carter said, "You came here to pacify the human species. You believed we were weak and would surrender easily. You were wrong. We could destroy every ship in your fleet. We could follow these ships back to your home worlds and destroy your civilizations, but we choose not to." The Admiral's voice never changed, never showed anger or emotion. That somehow made his words more frightening. "Remember this choice," Admiral Carter continued. "Remember that we are letting you live, not because we cannot destroy you, but because we choose not to. Make sure the choice never needs to be reconsidered." Captain Cole turned off the hologram display. The room became dark again. "That was 51 years ago," he said to Prince Vexenar. "Every species in the Coalition went home and agreed to never attack humans again. They created the Covenant of Zarian to make sure no one would ever forget what happens when humans are forced to defend themselves." Prince Vexenar was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "What happens to me now?" "Now," Captain Cole said, "you get to make the same choice your ancestors made. Learn from this experience, or watch your species face the consequences of forgetting the lesson." 3 days later, Prince Vexenar stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber on Zarian Prime. The huge dome was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all watching him. Some looked angry, some looked afraid. Most looked like they wanted to be anywhere else at the human section. Ambassador Lisa Chun sat with the same calm expression she had worn for 3 days. Beside her sat Commander Jake Morrison and Lieutenant Chris Harper. Chris had a small bandage on his lip where Vexenar had struck him. Prince Vexenar of the Zelkari Trade Consortium announced the council speaker, an ancient being whose species was so old that no one remembered their original name. "You stand accused of violating Article 1 of the Covenant of Zarian. How do you answer?" Vexenar looked around the chamber. In the Zelkari section, Elder Kexdal sat with his head in his hands. The other Zelkari representatives would not look at him. His own people had already decided he was guilty. "I struck Lieutenant Chris Harper," Vexenar said. His voice carried clearly through the chamber. "I did it because I was angry. I did it because I thought humans had too much power over other species." A wave of shocked whispers went through the chamber. Several representatives made sounds of fear and worry. "Do you understand the penalty for this crime?" The council speaker asked. "I understand," Vexenar said. He had learned much in the past 3 days. "The penalty is whatever humans decide it should be." Ambassador Chun stood up slowly. The chamber became completely quiet. "The Earth government has decided on the following punishment," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. Prince Vexinar will be exiled from Zelkari space permanently. The Zelkari Trade Consortium will pay damages of 10 billion galactic credits. All Zelkari military vessels will be reduced by 50% and placed under human observation for 10 years. Elder Kexdal stood up quickly. Ambassador Chun, these terms will destroy our economy. Our people will suffer greatly. Yes, Ambassador. Chun said simply, they will. War Speaker Thurok of the Krithik stood up. Ambassador, these terms seem moderate compared to what could have been demanded. They are moderate, Ambassador Chun agreed. We are choosing to be moderate. Prince Vexinar listened to the discussion happening around him. He understood now that he was not really being punished for hitting Chris Harper. He was being used as an example to remind everyone what happened when the rule was broken. I accept the punishment, he said loudly. The chamber went quiet again. Everyone looked at him. I accept exile from my homeworld, Vexinar continued. I accept that my people will suffer because of my actions. But I want everyone here to understand something. He turned to look directly at Ambassador Chun. I understand now why the rule exists, he said. Not because humans are cruel, but because they choose not to be cruel. And that choice can change. Ambassador. Chun nodded slightly. Prince Vexinar has learned the lesson that all species must learn. Humans do not want to be your masters. We do not want to control your governments or take your resources. We want to be left alone to live in peace. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from different species. But peace has a price, she continued. The price is that no one harms humans, ever, for any reason. Because, if you do, you will discover that we are not the peaceful species you see today. You will discover what we were during the war, and what we can become again if we must. Captain Ryan Cole, who had been standing quietly near the human section, stepped forward. The ghost fleet that appeared around Nexus Prime 3 days ago is always watching, he said. We have ships hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for signals like the one Commander Morrison sent. They have been waiting for 51 years, and they will keep waiting for as long as necessary. An old Vispari representative raised a shaking hand. Captain Cole, how many ships are in this ghost fleet? Captain Cole smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Enough. Prince Vexinar was escorted from the chamber by human guards. As he walked past the Krithik section, War Speaker Thurok stood up. Young Prince, Thurok said, you have learned something that few beings ever truly understand. You have seen the difference between strength and power. What do you mean? Vexinar asked. Strength is the ability to destroy your enemies, Thurok explained. Power is the ability to choose not to destroy them. Humans have both, but they choose to use only one. As Vexinar was led away, he thought about the past 3 days. He had seen the recordings of the war. He had learned how humans fought when they were forced to fight. He had understood why every species in the galaxy was afraid, but the most frightening thing was not the human ships, or weapons, or tactics. The most frightening thing was how calm they remained, even when responding. To the violation of their most sacred law, they had shown no anger, no desire for revenge. They had simply decided what needed to be done and done it. 6 months later, Jake Morrison was back on the diplomatic vessel Serenity, traveling to another trade meeting on another station. Amy Rodriguez was still his cultural liaison, and Chris Harper was still his pilot. The small scar on Chris's lip had healed completely. Sir, Amy said as they approached the new station, I have been reading about Prince Vexinar. He is living on a mining station in the Outer Rim now, working as a maintenance technician. Good for him, Jake said. He is alive and free. That is more than his species had a right to expect. Do you think he learned the lesson? Chris asked. Jake looked out at the stars. He learned that humans choose to be peaceful. The question is whether other species will remember that choice before they make the same mistake. As the Serenity docked at the new station, Jake noticed the familiar pattern. Other ships moving away from their approach. Aliens gathering their children and stepping aside. Security guards maintaining their careful distance. And in the center of the station's main plaza, a new monument made of black stone. The same words carved in glowing letters. No sentient being shall bring intentional harm to any human, under penalty of species extinction. Jake smiled as he read the words. The galaxy remained peaceful, not because humans could not harm others, but because they chose not to. And everyone knew that choice could change. The rule was simple. The consequences were absolute. And 51 years after the war ended, the galaxy still remembered why both were necessary.